less stress, more time, more money. Welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor Deep Dive.
Martin, you have an issue going on in your house with coffee because there's decaf and there's caffeinated,
Right,
but only one coffee maker, right?
right. And I'm that coffee maker, so it's caffeinated.
No,
Now, you're mocking me because for a good 45 minutes, I decided, well, I'll try to cut caffeine out. And then I changed my mind.
for how long? You said 45 minutes?
If maybe 30 minutes,
You went and bought a bunch of decaf?
not a bunch, but a little thing of decaf.
Is it empty now?
No.
It's basically full, just sitting there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I did quit. When I ran grain elevators, we'd start at 6 in the morning. I had one of those big things that you see at weddings, giant coffee maker, like 30 or 50 cups. All these farmers would come in every morning, drink coffee, and leave. And so one day I counted, I drank 26 cups of coffee.
No.
Little cups, little styrofoam
Okay.
cups.
But still, that's a lot of coffee.
Well, it was an interesting number,
Yeah.
but probably didn't drink it all. It'd get cold and throw it out. But anyway,
Yeah.
26.
Man, that's bad.
Why is it bad? You don't judge me.
I mean, everything needs moderation.
Well, it could have been 150.
It could have been 100.
So that was moderation.
Well, you're going off the path of where I was hoping to go with
No,
this.
you were
but-
trying to ridicule and criticize me, and I deflected it.
No, but you had an issue with your decaf experiments because you only had one coffee maker,
Right.
the percolator, and you would have to make 2 rounds of coffee, one for you and one for Diane, because she wouldn't drink the decaf, right?
Right.
And that was
I see where you're going. Are we talking about a bottleneck, limited capacity, having to make a choice? Okay.
Well, eventually I was going to be talking about the differences between builders and homeowners, which is really the highlight of our...
I see the segue.
That's the segue.
caffeinated.
But for the most part, I think there's not necessarily decaf and caffeinated with that, but there's a big difference in decaf and caffeinated. This has completely gone to garbage. So let's just go into the segment then.
Right. So what are we talking about today?
Talking about builders versus homeowners.
Right.
We're talking about what it's like to work directly with homeowners. And the reason why this came up is there's so much demand right now for housing. And there's a shortage in the market. Prices are through the roof. Inflation's happening. All these different things are going on. But for a remodeler or a subcontractor, they don't have to work directly with the builder anymore. They can go directly to the homeowner much easier than they probably could have in the past. Because in the past, the builders had a majority of the work, and it was a whole nother strategy to go directly to a homeowner, and you weren't guaranteed the work as much as you were with the builder. Because you can see, oh, there's the job, I'm going to bid it, and I've got it. So now there's all this opportunity out there, and there's good opportunities. And we're going to talk why they're good opportunities. But this came up with some contractors this week, and so that's why we've got it as one of our topics today. So there's a lot of differences between builders and homeowners. I think we're going to cover a majority of them today, but in general, what is the biggest difference in your eyes between working with a builder versus working with a homeowner?
Well, there's only biggest is a superlative, and there can only be one biggest. So
Well, what are some
there
of
are
the
a couple
biggest?
of the. Well, one of the first ones is that builders are in business and they tend to bet on their pencil, right? So that means your bid has to be competitive and it has to work, and they are aware
Right.
of the cost. Homeowners are making an emotional decision.
Yep.
And I don't mean they're quivering and fragile, but they're doing something for emotional reason. They also want to bet on they're not betting on their principal, but they're paying attention. But if you can deliver what satisfies their emotion, you can have higher margins, higher margins and higher prices than you get working with builders. That's one of the big things. Betting on a pencil versus betting on emotion.
Yeah.
Not to say builders aren't emotional. And not to say that homeowners don't bet on their pencil, but in general, that's a huge difference.
That's a big difference for sure. And that comes out in a lot of different ways too. There's different things like, you're probably going to be working with handful, dozen or so builders as a contractor, or GCs. And then with the homeowners, you could be working with dozens, almost hundreds.
Well, you eventually establish a relationship with builders when you work
Exactly.
with them over time. Can be good or bad, whatever, but you do establish a relationship. You come to learn each other's predilections and how they work and how things go. Every time you go meet a homeowner, you're starting a new building relationship. So in some respects, not entirely, but in some respects, you get the repository of goodwill over time with builders, and you have to start again every time with homeowners. You can have referrals and warm leads and things like that. And maybe you'll do 2 projects over the years, but most people aren't going to replace their kitchen 50 times a year, whereas a builder might give you 50 homes a year.
Exactly. And there are differences in types of contractors. If you are doing more service work, then yes, you can have a homeowner as a repeat business, but it's not likely, if you're doing a good job, that you're going to have to go back every single year, hopefully. And so while those differences are there, for the most part, it is that big ticket that happens one time,
Right.
maybe 2 in the lifetime of that customer. But what's really important with homeowners is referrals, and how one job can lead to another job. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So the first thing that I want to start with is the difference in the sales process with a homeowner versus with a builder. With a builder, they're extremely knowledgeable of the job. They know what's going on. But with a homeowner, this could be the first time they're having their kitchen remodeled in their life. And so there's a lot of questions that come up, a lot of education that has to happen during the sales process. And if you're not prepared for that, it can become overwhelming, and you can spend a lot of your time educating one-to-one rather than actually going and winning work and doing the work. What are some of the biggest hangups that you see for contractors when they work with homeowners versus builders?
Well, there are a lot of them. I may be just restating what you just said, but it's a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
I want new kitchen cabinets, or I want my living room re-sheetrocked or put an ad on, something like that. They're aware that you have to put concrete and wood, and build a room, an add-on, but maybe they don't realize you have to add on to the HVAC, or that you have to increase the size of your power panel. I mean, they just don't understand.
Yeah.
And not only in the product that they're getting, but they also don't understand things like scheduling. Why can't you start? How many times you see people who are non-contractors, and it's not a good thing, but you drive along and you see 5 guys standing with a shovel and 1 guy in the hole working, okay? Well, that's not a good process, but people say, well, contractors are lazy. Well, no, that's not lazy. That's the difficulties, Well, we didn't know we were going to hit a water line, and we got to get the plumber in there. He's got to fix it before we can do anything else.
Right.
So builders tend to understand that. They're not going to excuse it.
Sure.
They're going to keep the heat on. They understand that. Homeowners, if it rains today, then you ought to be back out there tomorrow, right? Well, no, ma'am. Or it rains for a week. Well, it's going to be 2 weeks before we can get back because we have to go to another job. Well, you're not paying attention to me. I don't understand. Well, you're right. You don't understand. Doesn't mean that's a lot of what we can do to be really good at it, is to remove those impediments. But I think that's the number one thing. They haven't been through it before, and they don't understand.
Yeah.
Builders they understand. they may not give you a pass, but they know.
Yeah.
Right? Most of them.
Yeah, and I think with a lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge comes poor expectations.
Right.
Right. And with
Maybe too high. Is
too
what you're
high of
saying.
expectations. Yeah, just poor, just misaligned expectations.
misaligned.
And I think for a lot of homeowners, if they have those expectations clearly up front, it can completely change the nature of the relationship, the fluidity of the project, and just how happy they are at the end. And so it's really about getting those expectations set out up front. And a lot of that happens through the qualification of the customers, because, I mean, you have a story about one of your clients going out and going to bid a job, and
2 weeks ago, Kerry Daniels, he's on a early episode. He's a pool builder, and we were laughing, but it wasn't really funny. He had gone out to a kind of a remote, 30-mile away job to bid walked around with the guy, took some measurements, and the guy said, "What do you think it's going to cost?" And he said, "I don't really know." And he said, "Well, I already got a bid for $27,000." And Kerry looked at him and said, "Well, for what you want, it's going to be at least 3 times that amount." And the guy said, "Well, if you can't compete," and that's about when your smoke starts coming out your ears. And he wasted a day
Yeah.
running over there. So it's a qualification process.
Yeah. And that's an
Everybody kind of
expectation.
knows that, but do we really do that?
Yeah. What does this actually cost?
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that should be addressed right up front with the homeowner. Because if you're not doing that and you're spending all the time driving out there, yeah, maybe that's part of your sales process. You don't say the price up front, but you need to have some sort of expectation or else you're going to be wasting time.
Well, I have an old story. It's a different business, web development, but had a mutual, I have a mutual client who used to do that. He's in a different area of IT now,
yeah.
but he would get calls all the time. Sophisticated web development, the stuff that keeps inventory for you and changes colors when you go from this shirt to that shirt. You can see it in green and blue, and keeps inventory, and you can do e-commerce. Those are complex websites. And people would call up and say, "How much for a website?" I said, "Well, in this $35,000. Are you kidding me? My brother-in-law's nephew did one for for $500. I said, "Fine." So I suggested, I think he actually did it before he quit being a developer, but found a website where at the top in the banner, it was web developers, and it said, "Our average website cost $104,351.80. And then the figures moved like it was updating constantly, which it wasn't. But our average website costs $100,000. Do not bother, what it's telling you is don't bother me calling up with your 350. I don't want to talk to you, right? So they put it out there. And one thing remodelers can do in their website, because you don't want to go out and somebody wants a kitchen and they thought they could get it for, $4,000, and you wasted your time. One of the things you can do is on your website, I think you do this, but you can have groupings.
Yep.
You can have a series of photographs with a thumbnail that demonstrates what you're talking about, and say kitchens from $12,000 to $28,000.
Yep.
And the next one, from $28,000 to $75,000, and then from $75,000 to infinity, and have pictures of those.
Yep.
And somebody who comes on realizes I should have used pools instead of cabinets, but a guy who's looking for a $27,000 pool notices there's not one on there.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to tell him you're a cheapskate hoser and you're not going to get it. You got to let him deselect himself, right?
And that's really what's really good about marketing whenever you're at this stage and you're going directly to homeowners, is that it will qualify people for themselves. Right.
Self-deselect.
It'll self-deselect, and you only want to be educating the qualified buyers that are out there. Something that is really helpful during the sales process. There's two examples here. One of them we know from Marcus Sheridan, great book, They Ask You Answer, but he was a pool builder as well. Mm-hmm. And one thing that he has for his salespeople is they send over 5-minute video via email to any new leads that are coming in before they meet with them. And in the email, it says, "We will not meet with you unless you watch this video." And then they ask them before they schedule the meeting, were you able to watch the video? And if they say no, it's like, okay, well, we can't schedule the meeting yet.
Well, they'll reschedule.
They'll reschedule.
So they let them deselect themselves.
But in that
point.
video, it covers a lot. It aligns the expectations.
Right.
It says clearly, hey, this is how long it's going to take. We're going to destroy your yard. You're responsible for your sprinkler system and your fence. This is the average price of a pool, and here's what makes it go up. Here's what allows it to be that low, right? And all those different things, so that now whenever they go into a meeting or a sales call, they've already been qualified through all of the biggest hangups that happen during projects. Another example that we have done for multiple clients is an ultimate buyer's guide, is what we call it internally. We name them all differently for each company, but internally we call it an ultimate buyer's guide. And essentially in this ultimate buyer's guide, you're going through every single question that a homeowner might have during the process of sales and during the process of production, construction, whatever it is you're doing, from beginning to end. It outlines the entire process, every single step, and it's not just consolidation into 3 steps. Some of them might have 12 steps that are super long, and it details every single one, all the frequently asked questions, all the potential obstacles that happen. You know, anything that a homeowner might ask is in that buyer's guide. And so they can read that on their own time. If there's something that's not in the buyer's guide that comes up, it's something that's updated with that new update of information that's new to the buyer's guide that wasn't in there before. So those are both really helpful documents. Maybe that video that you send over for somebody to watch, but also that buyer's guide that also can act as a really good training tool for salespeople, right? It's not, there's multiple purposes to it, but that content is really valuable in helping with homeowners. With a builder, you don't necessarily need that, right? There are some things that you probably do want to have, right? Maybe a positioning document, which we'll talk about here in a second. You do want to be really clear on, you know, what your capabilities are, what your processes are, what your timing is, what, you know, what goes into your bid, what's not included in your bid, etc. But you don't necessarily need an ultimate buyer's guide, because you're going to develop a relationship with that builder most likely. That's the goal, at least. And you're going to get to know how each other work, and you can figure some of the nuances out as you go.
Yeah, you don't have to have a buyer's guide working with, or a positioning document when working with the builder, but it doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt
because
at all.
it lays out expectations. You talked about the video that Sheridan talks about sending out in advance. Then they would call up and say, "Did you have a chance to watch the video?" They said no. So, well, we need to reschedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember. He tells in his book his conversion rate went from 30% to like 60% when they did that.
Yeah.
That they weren't, you know, I didn't have time. And I think they were longer than 5 minutes. They were about 30 minutes. So it was a real commitment.
Sure.
But if you want a swimming pool,
It's a commitment.
yeah, if you want a swimming pool, though, you love watching it.
Sure.
Right? If you're interested in
Very
something.
educational.
But a positioning document takes what might have been in that video, all the things that can go wrong, and do and don't, you know, the impact of things, because they don't understand.
Yeah.
It might restate a lot of what's in the video, but it's also in writing, where you say to the customer, this is in the qualification phase, this is what you can expect from us,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what we will expect from you.
Yep.
So it's, you don't just tell them what you're going to expect from them. You tell them we will return your calls within 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we will update you on progress every Friday. I mean, that's a great thing every remodeler can do when working with the public. Most of them don't do it because it's hard.
It is hard.
It's getting to be easier with the software like Jobber and stuff, where you
Sure.
can pre-program stuff, or portals where they can get in and see. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to advise you immediately if we can't keep the schedule. We're going to tell you what the schedule is, advise you immediately if we can't. That's what we're going to do. Here's what we expect from you: that you make material and color selections on time. You acknowledge that a one-day delay on choosing the color of your tile might cost a 3-week delay in getting your project done because we're going somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
We expect you to pay the invoices within 2 days. Mm-hmm. We expect that you call us back if we call you if you see a problem or have a problem, we expect you to call us. Anyway, but it's based on your experience. If you've been a remodeler at all, you know what's likely to go wrong. And what I tell people is, how many remodel jobs have you done? And they say 1,000. Say, how many has your typical customer done? This being in the remodeling side. None. So who knows what's going to happen and who doesn't? And of course, it's you, Mr. Remodeler or Mrs. Remodeler, that you've seen all these things, and put them down. Put the common ones down.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to bring those things up, because everybody knows and says that what you want to do is under promise and over deliver, right? And what you're doing if you gloss over things is you're over promising with a great likelihood that you're going to under deliver when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
So stick your chin out and do it. One thing is, good customers see that as professionalism.
Yeah.
They just do.
Yeah.
And if they want to push back and argue and negotiate unreasonably, then walk away.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to move on to, the differences in, amount of work that happens and the consistency of it but also the margins that come along with it. What I hear from a lot of remodelers that are working directly for builders and GCs is that it keeps them busy, that they don't have to worry about cash flow, that there's always a job coming in and always a job going out. It keeps their employees busy, and that keeps them happy. But if they sit and they look at the margins, they're not necessarily keeping all the profits, right? And with the people that are working directly with the homeowner, sometimes you'll see their net margins are 2-3 times as much by working with the homeowner directly and cutting out the builder from that process. And so we've talked about this before, where don't worry about the top line, don't worry about the jobs coming in. Sometimes you'll waste a lot of time just doing the builder's work because it keeps you busy, but it's not necessarily the most profitable.
Well, I've had not remodelers, but electrician comes to mind, where they were doing wiring new houses because the cash flow was so good, and they had like 5 crews doing it because they got paid every Friday. Well, if you weren't wiring the houses, you wouldn't have had the expenses that you needed that money for.
Yeah.
Right? So it really, I get it. It's fun to make a big deposit, but if in getting a deposit for $100, you're going to write $110 worth of payroll checks, you really haven't done anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's our recurring theme is
Yeah.
It isn't sales, it isn't margins, it isn't profit, it is cash into more cash. It takes sales, it takes margins,
Yep.
it takes profit to do that. But if you're just trying to jump all the intermediaries and put out 100 and get 100 back, then what are you really accomplishing?
Yeah.
Especially if a holiday falls on Friday and you don't get that Friday check.
Yep.
You still got to pay the guys, right?
Still got to pay the guys.
Yeah,
That's right. And I think, for a lot of people, they understand that, and maybe it's the first time they really thought about it like that, where it's like, oh man, if I go directly to the homeowners, I have a huge opportunity to make some more money. But they don't realize that it's actually a completely different process. The intake process is something that you have to worry about. What happens when 5 homeowners start calling you? Are you going to be answering the phone?
Right.
And what happens when you have 10 jobs going with homeowners at the same time? Who's doing customer service? Is that you on the job? And there's just different things that you have, not just with aligning expectations and doing education, but the process is actually different. Where with the builder, you've worked with them for a long time, you know the neighborhood that they're in.
Well, builders, let's take a framer, for example. It's not manufacturing, but it kind of is. And what makes manufacturing different than contracting is scheduling and jigs, if people know what jigs are. Once you build something and you're building more or less the same thing all the time, you can lay out processes and fittings and structures, and you lay the boards in there, nail them up, everything goes real fast. So and once you've been a contractor, a framer, let's say, the lumber package arrives and it's not exactly the same plans, but your guys learn how, you
there's
get
a system.
systems and process.
Yeah.
When you're working with people and consumers directly, and you're going into their house, you have schedules and you have misunderstandings and you have somebody at home because they got COVID, don't come today. We let the dog out.
Yep.
You just have 100 things. And so just for conversation's sakes, remodeling and margins should
Be more. Yeah. You're dealing
because
with more.
you just have more to do and your work becomes less building a structure than maybe half is actually doing the work. The rest of it is the communication, the selling, the marketing, the placating an irate customer, the explaining, the education, all those things. Whereas you avoid, not completely, but you can avoid a lot of that when you're B2B with a builder and doing the same thing pretty much over and over and over.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you mentioned the marketing there, and that's a big difference that we haven't really gone too deep into. But, a website for a builder, they want to see that you're real. They want to see some of the projects that you've worked on, maybe the logos of some other builders you've worked with.
I'm just thinking about a bunch of
it.
framers I know of tangentially, and I doubt any of them have a website.
Exactly, and you don't even have to have a website.
Right.
But, in some cases, it's helpful to make sure that your bid is especially if you're
No,
newer.
it legitimizes. It's one
legitimizes
step
you.
above the five guys who don't have one.
Exactly. And so that can be helpful, but you don't absolutely need one.
Right.
But it's nice to have. You really need to be going out and getting in front of builders. You've got to be putting out bids. That's going to be your marketing. You've got to go and drive by job sites, try to meet them, go to GC expos and stuff like that to be able to get in front of them so that you can start building that relationship. That's your marketing. That's your bid is your marketing most times when you're working with the builder. There are other things that absolutely matter, but that's going to get you most of the way. It's not necessarily the case with homeowners, right? It's like you said at the beginning, it's an emotional thing for homeowners most times. And so if you can appeal to those emotions, if you can help them solve their problems, help them achieve their goals and take advantage of opportunities, that's what's going to really help them want to work with you as far as marketing goes. Your website needs to speak directly to homeowners. It isn't about, we've been in business for this long. I hate seeing that on a website.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
I mean, it can be a note down at the bottom.
Sure,
if
but
they're researching.
Yeah, we have the finest processes, and no one really cares about that. They want to see, what type of work have you done? They want to know
Social proof, referrals.
exactly. They want to know what you can do for them. They want to know, ballpark what it's
Reviews,
going to
not
price.
referrals, what I mean.
They want to, see reviews from past customers, right? That's what's going to help them feel like, wow, this is someone I can trust and I want to call and schedule an appointment with. Other things that change marketing wise is reputation management and public relations, I think is what you called it before we started talking. But with the builder, your reputation's your work, and it's you showing up on time. It's, you being on budget, not a bunch of change orders, all those kinds of things. With the homeowner, your reputation management is social media. It's Google reviews. It's all that stuff that's out there on the internet, because if they leave a good Google review for you, that's going to lead to more people finding you and wanting to work with you. If they leave a bad Google review for you, completely destroys
And the old
your reputation
stats out there too, that people are 26 more times likely to leave a bad review
Oh,
than
absolutely.
somebody with a good experience. They're going to get on there and smoke you.
Way more difficult. And all it takes is a homeowner to go live on Facebook and going through and showing the poor work you did on a job, and that can completely tank you. We had a client that their salesperson was wearing, it was after hours on the weekend, at night, got into a traffic altercation.
I saw that.
Yeah, got into a traffic altercation in the middle of like the country on a back road with a young girl, like an 18-year-old girl. Tinted windows, so couldn't see that it was a girl, thought it was a guy. Got out of his car and was wearing the shirt for the company. And the girl went live with
She was scared to death.
scared to death in her car.
Justifiably so.
Yeah,
was
and
whacked.
the guy was like ex-military, massive dude.
Yeah.
And was yelling at her, telling her to get out of the car. Didn't know it was a girl again, but got close enough to the window after like 5 minutes to see that it was a little girl, and got back in his truck essentially. And they started getting calls left and right, people posting never work with this company, and you just can't control it. It's public relations at that point. And so it's very different. They were able to solve, the problem and handle it well, but it was definitely, Sunday night calls, trying to talk to the family, asking them to take the stuff down, seeing what they can do to help. And that's not something you're gonna have to deal with a builder most likely, but it is when you work directly with homeowners. So different things that you have to worry about there. The other thing I was gonna bring up is that case studies are probably some of the most valuable things that you can do as a remodeler with homeowners. Because if you can get really great before photos and after photos of the project, if you can explain the story of the homeowner, what the challenge was that they were having or the goal that they had for their space, and really make it detailed and specific and unique to that customer, then talk about the process that you went through, how you solved those challenges, why you decided, if you're doing cabinets, why you decided to do these specific type of drawers with these specific features or cutouts for, a bar at the kitchen island or whatever it is.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. But
And that really is one of the highlights of the differences.
Oh, it's
because if your work becomes more and more and more of that, even if you hire it done, you have to use it.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being in the, just
Exactly.
putting boards together or building something.
And it's different if that's not who you are, the direction you want to go, definitely don't work with homeowners, but recognize that if you,
Or have somebody who does
Exactly.
in your interface.
but if that's something that you're going to do, those are the things that are going to be valuable to you. But yeah, building that case study out where you have really great photos, maybe even a video interview of the customer, and then you can use that on your website to tell a story that's impactful to future buyers and helps educate them about what it's like to work with you and how you can make a difference for them on this project. That's something that can then be shared out through social media, all those kinds
You
of
know
things.
what? Just asking you this. I have a client who's looking to go into another city. And so I got on the internet just to see how many of competitors were in the other city. And there were a number of them, and one or two had good websites, but the highest number of Google reviews I saw was 7.
And this is for a residential contractor?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the rest, I mean, there were 2, there were a couple of sites. Somehow they show up in Google search, but they don't have a website. I mean, they show up in a little box.
Yeah, map pack.
Yeah, map box, but they didn't even have a website.
Yeah.
I thought, holy cow. So people listening who maybe don't have Google reviews, here's a challenge for today. Go get one today.
Go get one.
Go get one.
Go get 5.
Do you know? Well, of course, but just go get one.
And see how difficult it is.
Yeah, even the people who loved you. Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, you got to make it easy for them.
Yep.
And there are softwares that do that, but you can do it yourself. How do you get the link that takes them right to the box and send that to them?
Yep.
And then say, please, they go, oh, yeah, I'll do it. And they don't.
They don't do it at all.
And I don't mean because they really hate you, but I don't know what to say or whatever. That's why they're so darn valuable. It's because they're hard to get.
Yeah.
If you get out there, I had a former client, has almost 2,000. This is an Oklahoma City area company. We're not, yes, well, if you got a 4.9 review with or average star review with 2,000,
means
that's
a lot.
real.
Yeah.
That's who you are.
Yep.
If you got a 5-star review with 5 and you look on there and they all have the same last name and it happens to be yours, but I mean, you kind of going, oh, that's good. But you get to 50 or 60 and it makes a huge difference.
You really want those reviews to be real. And what I mean by real is not just that a real person put them, but that they're very specific and detailed. Right. And you want to reply to every single one.
Right.
You want people to reference a specific problem that you solved in that review. Oh, we worked with 3 other contractors before this and it was a nightmare. These guys were perfect.
Right.
They
Some people
answered the phone.
Yeah.
They helped us with all of our problems and they finished on time. I wouldn't recommend any other contract for this type of job or contract.
And to tie it back to our topic of the difference between working with builders and working with homeowners is a builder probably hasn't looked at your Google reviews.
Yeah.
I mean, they know. Yeah. If they're mad, they're mad.
They've called the other builders that you've probably worked with and
I mean, when you first break in with somebody, nowadays, just show up and you can break in pretty much. But they're not nearly reviews and that type of social proof are not nearly as important as it is when you're working with the general public.
For sure. And I think there's some traps that you can fall into with homeowners as well. Because there's a lack of understanding of how to target homeowners directly, there becomes a lot of wasted time and money on these things. There was a question, there's a Facebook group, Contractors Helping Contractors. I honestly don't really enjoy being in Facebook groups, but this is one that I'm in, and I think there's some valuable stuff that's posted. But someone asked me a question in the Facebook group, or someone asked a question, I replied to it, I should say. And I wanted to kind of just read through this just because I think it's fairly valuable. Let's see here. So the question was, what's your go-to source to generate leads as a remodeler? My partner and I have been in business going on 8 months and doing good with just referrals, door knocking, and vendors, but wanted to step it up a notch. Doing our first 400,000 quarter, so we're definitely looking to scale and find the best way to reinvest back into the business. And what tends to happen here is, I don't even just looking through some of the comments, everyone's saying, oh, do SEO, do this, do that. And hey, I can help you with SEO. And search engine optimization is great, but that's not necessarily what the most impactful thing is. And what I told this guy is what I recommend first is to start where you're winning. He said that most of it's just referrals and door knocking and vendors. Just double down on that. A word of mouth referral program is huge. If you can get people to consistently send more referrals to you, it's not going to cost you nearly as much money. Your processes are already optimized for getting referrals, right? You're not set up to start checking your email for leads that are coming in through SEO necessarily, but you're really good at when someone sends that text or calls in that you're ready to go.
Yeah,
right?
they're warm leads, and they're in essence
Yeah.
pre-qualified too, because very likely the referring source told them what they paid
Exactly.
and saw what they got, so they're not thinking I'm going to get a $27,000 pool.
Yeah, exactly. And the cost is just hardly extra compared to some of these other things. You can go and hire an SEO firm for thousands of dollars. And really, you only needed a couple jobs a month more to be able to do something. And there's no guarantee that SEO is actually going to help, right? And if you have a really bad website, it's not really worth investing in the SEO because the SEO is pointing to your website, right? The next thing I told him is just document your happy customers. We just said that, but getting Google reviews, taking photos of jobs before and after, building out case studies, taking video, posting all that stuff to social, having on your website. If you're able to document those, whenever someone does refer you and they go and visit your website, now you have a really good process of qualifying them and educating them and aligning those expectations. And then once you have all that in place, if you're like, man, we've got a really good foundation, we're optimized for people to come to our website, see exactly the kind of work we do, what it costs to work with us, what the process is, the types of jobs that we work on, and they can qualify themselves through our website. But we're just not getting enough referrals word of mouth. We're getting 4 a month, and that's great, but we want 20 a month. Okay, well, if you have the actual capacity to do that amount of work, now you start looking into running some Facebook ads. Now you start going and looking into doing some SEO, getting a lot more Google reviews, running ads on Google local services, those kinds of things. But if you don't do it in that order, you end up wasting a lot of time and probably a lot of money too. And you just don't get the results that you expected.
Giving them a takeaway today. What? And I'm ambushing you because we didn't talk about it.
No, go ahead.
What's a great strategy for a referral program?
So there's a few that are out there. One that we've set up for people before is every single job that you finish, making sure that you hand deliver a note, right? And and on this, it's an envelope. You've got a card in there that says thank you, whatever, but then also has this piece of paper that's well designed and short, brief, but really packed with information, and also a gift card. And so two things happen. One, you're handing the envelope and you're saying thank you, but you're also asking for the Google review at that moment because the job's done, you're face to face with them. There's a little bit more social pressure to be able to oh wow, they just asked for this, they've sent me the link, it's on my phone and my text messages right now, and I should go and do this because they asked and they said it would mean the world to them and they just helped me with this project, right? That's a really good time to get the review. But in that envelope, you've got a gift card to their favorite restaurant. Again, this is for companies that are doing jobs that are north of $10,000 on the small side, right? Where we can buy them, we can get a $50 gift card to their restaurant and build it into our quote if we want to do that. Then you've got a gift card to a restaurant that they like, and ideally you've asked earlier in the process where they like to go eat, or you've maybe looked at some of the material, like maybe they have a cup from somewhere inside their house. And you get them a gift card to there, and you say, "Thank you so much for this project. It's been a wonderful experience for us. And honestly, we want to work with more people that are just like you. And we actually have a referral program. If you refer someone, you have whatever the offer is. You can say."
That's what I'm asking you too. Kind of what are some of the offers?
Yep. So that's how you kind of present it. Some of the offers that we've seen people do is, hey, we'll give you another gift card to wherever you like. Sometimes Amazon gift cards are really helpful because everyone shops there. There's other things that you might be able to do depending on what type of service you're offering. For example, if you're doing something in the landscaping or whatever it is, that's what we were talking about, or one of the clients that we've set it up for. You can have, hey, we go in and we bring in nice pottery that fills your backyards with plants, right? It's an addition to what your package didn't come with, and it's something that we'll do free of charge if you refer someone that closes a deal. So some sort of add-on to your service. You can do a gift card. Another thing that you can do is you can say, hey, we'll come back and we'll do a free cleaning or maintenance or some sort if you give a referral. And you can also say, hey, we'll give a $500 discount or whatever it is to the person that you refer, right? Or they can also get this package so that it's a win-win. And so now when they refer someone, it's not just say, hey, you should use this person. It's say, hey, if you use this person, they do this upgrade free of charge, right? And those are usually things that work pretty well inside these referral programs is, doing it face-to-face, asking for the referral, but also having a really clear note with a gift card that says thank you. And then having an upgrade of some sort or some sort of benefit that goes to both the current customer and the future customer.
Yeah, and talking about that on benefits, discounts do work. I mean, we're paying for that lead. One of the things is if a benefit can have a perceived value,
yes,
as opposed to an identifiable value. So if, like you said, a really good idea, a giant pot. We've got some pots that 5 feet tall in our backyard. Well, 4 feet tall, 5 feet tall
they're
in our
fairly
backyard.
expensive.
Well, you go down around here and they cost $1,000.
Yeah,
But I know where you can get them, about $250.
exactly.
You have to drive over there to get them, but you can do it. And so you give them a giant pot, and valued it at $1,000, or you can value it at $2,000 because you delivered it, whatever.
Yeah,
So it has a high perceived value, but a low actual cost. And just in passing too, we talk about trying to whatever it takes to create raving fans. That's a little bit of a hackneyed phrase or a phrase. It's been used a lot, but it's a good idea. How do you really create a raving fan? And I define a raving fan this way. You're going over to your buddies and you're going to play cards, right?
yeah,
And somebody at the table says, hey, do you know a good remodeler? And they go, yeah, I do, right? And give them your name. A raving fan goes that card game. It says, hey, before we deal, does anybody here need a good remodeler? Because I got a guy. He brings it up. He's such a fan, right? And that, of course, isn't just because of a gift we gave him or anything. It's the whole process.
It's the whole,
where they understood what was going on. They communicated. They told us the bad news just like they told us the good news. Things happened the way they said. They did what they said they were going to do. And then they closed it out with a walkthrough or whatever. So it's a general behavior throughout the process. But a final offer or a final gesture at the end where you actually ask for a referral or ask for reviews. That's how you get them.
Yeah.
You don't just assume they're going to do it.
Absolutely. And another thing, this is a good example. Whenever you're doing a referral program, especially for direct to homeowners, you have to recognize that for most homeowners that are investing in remodeling their house, they tend to have people over to their house. They tend to host. Right. A lot of times they're remodeling the kitchen, so they can't host.
So you want to burn your logo into the countertops, right?
Yeah, you just want it to be huge logo front and center
everywhere.
of the island of the kitchen. Now, but there's things that you can, one, if you're doing a really good job, people are going to see the work you've done because they're over at the house and they're in probably the same demographic as the customer you just serviced because they're coming over to the house and they're friends, right? But you can do things that stand out inside the house. For a countertop company that we work with, it's cutting boards that have the logo in the bottom corner, but they're really nice cutting boards. They do, different surfaces like quartz and granite, and they'll do a matching cutting board that's the same surface type, and it looks really nice, right? For an outdoor company that we worked with, they did chimeneas, right? That had a little, and they also put these like silver, nice plaques that have their logo on the items that they do outside. Not to where they're overbearing, but they're there in case anybody needed to maintenance what they did, or if they wanted to see something. And those are great ways of getting in front of the people for very cheap that are in your target market, obviously. So those are some good examples.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. They didn't need us to tell them. I think that there's quite a little difference between working with builders and working directly with the homeowners.
Huge difference.
Different expectations, different repeat business, different margins, different marketing strategies, different education levels. But either business can work. But if you want higher margins and you're willing to do the marketing and I don't want to call it babysitting, but I will because I can't think of another word, of people who don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And you have the temperament for that.
Yeah.
Because if you slam the phone down, call them idiots and slam the phone down, kind of screwed up, you know.
Yeah.
You have to be able to. It can be absolutely worth it to go directly with the homeowner.
And there's people that are frustrated in the current state that they're in. They are currently working with builders and they're frustrated by, you know, how low their bids have to be able to win jobs and stuff like that. And like, man, I think I'm going to go direct to homeowners. Well, take a second look, make sure that you know what you're stepping into before you say, you know, screw the builders.
Right.
Let's make sure that we're prepared to go direct to homeowner and be aware of what might help you with your current place that you're in, working directly with builders. If you're directly with homeowners right now and you're like, man, I just want more consistent work. I just want to, you know, wire the homes and get paid every Friday, right? Be sure that you know exactly what you're getting into with builders.
Right.
You know, don't think that, and relook at how you're working with homeowners right now. Are you doing some of the things that we talked about today? Are you optimized for working with homeowners? You know, are you charging enough? Sometimes you're charging what you charge the builders to work with the homeowner, and it's not worth it at that point to take on all that extra work. So lots of things to consider with where you currently are and where you're hoping to go as well.
Yes, sir. And then you get days like today where it sleets and you can't do anything.
Can't do anything. And you listen to the Cash Flow Contractor.
Yeah, there you go. I guess you can do something.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, thanks for chatting, Martin.
Yeah.
Good luck with your coffee.
Yeah, I think Starbucks is closed. I don't know where I'm going to get coffee today. Have to go find a source.
Thanks for listening to The Cash Flow Contractor. Check out our website in the show notes or visit thecashflowcontractor.com.